Hey Retro Rumble listener, David here, creator of the Retro Rumble podcast and occasional irregular host. This is just a little bit of a heads up. Today's episode is missing the first 30 minutes of discussion, and the reason being is that it was virtually completely unusable. So it had to be cut, of course, leaving just the remaining hour. Now we do cut it at around about the point of the last few minutes of the Super Mario Brothers movies discussion, and it was placed to cut because we do give a nice little summary of what we thought of the movie before we move on to things like Double Dragon and Street Fighter, which is the two other subjects of this episode. There's a good hours left of the show, so really this show is just a lot shorter than it normally is. Our apologies. We will make sure, endeavour to ensure that this doesn't happen again. We are a new show after all, so we are going to get these sort of issues that we have to iron out. So that aside, once again, sorry for the issues we've been having. We will look to resolve them, and let's get to the show.
Wasn't that a little strange?
I don't think he was the main character. I think he was just he sort of stuck out for a moment because of his love interest with Daisy.
Yeah, he gets the love interest.
He is also the younger and cooler looking one. I mean,
Played by John Leguizamo.
Was cooler than Bob Hoskins.
Yeah. What do you? I mean, it's not really answering your question, but what I found really strange was like, did you happen to notice how Luigi spent more time wearing red than Mario did, and Mario spent more time wearing green than Luigi did? That's just something that stuck out. There's a scene where they go into a nightclub, and here's an opportunity. Let's stick them in suits because they wear these like pimped out suits, and Luigi ends up wearing this all red ensemble, which is really random, and maybe they didn't know, I don't know, but and then Mario was wearing this bright sort of mustard yellow jacket with I think a matching turtleneck and a medallion, and these sort of black flares with flames on the edge or something like that. I just think the clothing was weird.
I look back on that movie and I like the style of it. I really like. I think that the whole like underground dystopia kind of.
I love all that stuff. Yeah.
It's very like 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. It I hear the Blade Runner reference a lot when it comes to the Mario movie, and I agree. Blade Runner did it much better.
Well, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually an excuse for me to mention my favorite movie of all time. But I
Which
thought,
version?
as far as the OG version. I mean the OG, not the theatrical version, the director's cut. The Sans, is that the word? Sans? The Sans over talk. What's the word? Voiceover.
The voiceover,
episode.
Yeah, with Harrison Ford acting real bored. And
Harrison Ford did it on purpose
anywhere.
To get a cut. Yeah. Let me ask you this. I mean, if they took the characters, right, and kept it as it was, kept them as plumbers, kept Cooper as a dinosaur, all this stuff, and changed their names, you probably wouldn't have been able to. You wouldn't have been able to notice that this was originally. Let's just say they changed it. You wouldn't have noticed that this was originally a Mario movie.
Well,
it was so removed.
It would be exactly what it is today. It's a schlocky B movie that like you can get some semi enjoyment out of, but not because of how good it is, but because of how schlocky it is.
I mentioned earlier that I watched it, and it was It was. It really doesn't quite get to that level for me, because so there are a lot of films out there which are rubbish enough to the point where they could be so bad that it in turn makes them really watchable. Like kind of campy and kind of funny and goofy and stupid and overacted and all this stuff. But Super Mario Bros. Doesn't quite get there for me. For the first act, I think it was, and I was watching it thinking like, oh, this is actually pretty decent. I'm enjoying this, but then it kind of goes downhill for me a little bit.
So
Honestly,
go ahead.
it's kind of boring.
It got boring.
To be fair. There are like long sections where like nothing really happens.
Pacing's all off, yeah.
Yeah, it's very strangely paced, and I think that's what keeps it from becoming just like a really good, so bad it's good movie. I watch it with my brothers all the time, or like every couple of years or whatever. But I don't think any of us like would watch it on our own or anything like that. It's kind of a way for all of us to just kind of like force other people to watch it. You know what I mean?
It's funny, yeah, to watch them be like, what the hell is this? I was thinking earlier when I was watching it that I had actually been trying to watch it all week, but I realize now that I think I was trying to put it off. And I watched it at the very last second, hence why I finished watching it probably about an hour ago now, because I thought I gotta watch it because I can barely remember it, so I gotta have something to reference here, some memory of it, and I had virtually none other than that bob-omb, and I think deep down I just didn't want to watch it. I think I have like unconscious memories or subconscious memories of it being a terrible movie. But I wouldn't call it terrible. I don't think it's terrible. I just think it's below par. It's just not. It's not bad enough to enjoy, if that makes sense, and it's certainly not good enough to win any awards, or to want to own a copy of it. It just doesn't quite get there. And like John said, with the way that it just sort of pacing and the way it sort of peters off as it goes along, it starts off very kind of interesting. I like the dialogue and the back and forth between Bob Hoskins' gruff Brooklynian take on Mario and Luigi's similar sort of take. I liked their interaction. I thought that was really good. But then, like from the moment it gets deeper into the story, it just goes right downhill.
Well, I think Mario and Luigi have always been from Brooklyn.
Yeah, oh, that's true. That is absolutely true. But you never really consider them having a Brooklynian accent. It's just because of the very first game was set in the sewers of Manhattan in Brooklyn. Obviously, there's not much story there.
Nintendo has more leaned into their Italian portion of that than their New York, I guess. If that makes sense?
Well, you hear Mario speaking in all other iterations before, and even after the movie, he sounds way more Italian than he does Brooklynian.
Right.
Well, in the 90s cartoon, he sounded a lot more, and in the American cartoon, he sounded a lot more like Brooklyn.
Do you think they're trying to sort of affect a kind of like he's Italian, but he's been living in Brooklyn for a long time, so you've sort of got the accent now?
Right. Well, I mean, there are a lot of Italians in New York.
No, I know, but I mean, like the Brooklyn accent is very different from the Italian accent.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and they definitely had with Lou Albano playing Mario, they definitely had like some influence maybe on the cartoon, maybe a little bit.
It'd be interesting to see how they go with it with the new movie, or how they take it rather with the new movie.
Do you guys think that he is going to speak? It's kind of a weird question because he's not absolutely he's not exactly known for speaking all that often.
But I can imagine Mario speaking more than I can Sonic. To make a comparison, because I feel like I don't know. I'm not even sure why I think this, but I just feel like Mario has spoken enough now that people just accept that he has a voice. If that makes sense. Like Link, for example, has barely spoken at all. other than here and all that stuff. That's pretty much what people have heard from him. So people are hesitant even to attempt a voice. Mario has said it's a Mia Mario a bunch of times now, to the point where we know what he sounds like. So
well, yeah, I mean,
think
and it was a
movie
big
was-
deal. It was a big
But
deal
Sonic-
when Odyssey came out that we could finally see Mario's nipples. That like people didn't even think he had nipples.
People freaked out about that.
They really did.
which is
That
so
was really-
strange because
Yeah.
He's a human man, so of course he has nipples.
yeah, and somebody brought up in the chat that there was some Japanese 80s animated movie.
Yeah. That
Has anybody seen that?
No, but I've been meaning to a lot, and it technically could be said that it is the first Mario movie, because I do understand that I think I understand that it was the first video game movie, but I don't think it got such a wide release. Certainly not outside of Japan. I think it was called Super Mario Brothers: The Quest to Rescue Princess Peach, or something along those lines. But I've not
Something
seen it,
along
no.
those lines. No. All right. Does anybody have anything left to say about the Super Mario Brothers, either the past, present, or future movie? I think we're about ready to move on to our next movie.
I don't know, nothing I've not already said about the Mario. Last movie, awful to the point where it's not fun to watch at all, and I'll probably never see it again.
Not even ironically.
Not even if someone said, "Hey, don't be funny, let's watch a terrible movie." I would think of so many other movies, because it's genuinely, it's enjoyable initially, but then it just like I said, just peters out to the point that when you're done, you're just like, "Oh, okay, that was a wasted half an hour or hour and a half." But I'm optimistic about the
Definitely
future.
how I feel about it is, I mean, I
Wasted potential.
I could think of so many worse movies, so many worse video game movies that like are actually interesting. If somebody was like, "Let's watch a video game movie," I mean, there are some that like I would say are, watchable, even, pretty close to being a good movie. That if somebody's like, "Let's watch a good one," I could probably find one that wouldn't be that offensive.
One could
I'm,
argue that we're going to talk about one later on today during
Totally.
this podcast. Yeah.
Maybe.
But-
And I would say our next two movies will go either side of the Mario movie in terms of quality,
Oh,
watchability.
absolutely. Yes. Next up, we are going to talk about the Double Dragon movie. And I have a feeling that this one is worse than the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh my lord, it is. So bad, you guys. It is almost unwatchable.
2007, Los Angeles. The city has changed. Cops rule the day. Punks rule the night. And one man wants to rule them all. There's only one thing he needs to succeed.
This is only half of it. Find me the other half now.
And look who's got it.
It magnifies the power inside you. This half gives power over the body.
Now, two brothers will stop at nothing to protect their half.
Look out!
And a madman will stop at nothing to possess it.
You're gonna love this.
Let's have some fun.
Who wants gum?
If they succeed, they're heroes. But if he does, they're history.
Time to skin you guys.
T2's Robert Patrick, Scott Wolf, Mark Dacascos, and Alyssa Milano. Double Dragon.
You said it. We don't really have to wear these, do we?
What is your history with the movie? Did you watch it when you were a kid?
I didn't watch it when I was a kid. I watched it about a year ago, I think. And it was a
Holy.
genuine toe curler of a movie. I just like anything in life. I like to complete things. I don't like to leave things half finished. So when it comes to movies, like I've never walked out of a cinema, for example. I've never stopped the film halfway through. I will push through to the end. And Double Dragon was a true test of my my patience, because not my patience, my tendency to see things through to the end. You know, it was an actual challenge. Try and watch it yourself,
Really?
listeners. It is interesting initially, just like the Mario movie, but then it just gets to the point where you just think like, oh, this is just so bad. I can't.
Yeah.
Although I will say Robert Patrick's bright blonde pompadour is probably the only good thing about the movie.
What about you, Jonathan? What's your history with?
I mean, honestly, I've never watched it, mostly because I'd heard it was really bad, and I don't know. I just have never.
Just watch it and agree with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I watched
No.
it, and I agree with David.
Okay.
No. I mean, like when we're done, just give it a watch and you'll see what I mean. Like,
Yeah,
I'll be
I
honest.
probably will.
My memory of it is extremely because, like I say, it didn't exactly leave much of an impression on me. So,
Oh, well, really, like my history of this movie is that when I was in elementary school, I was taking karate classes, and I remember one night, I think they had like some sort of event where it's like invite your friends or something like that, and like they showed like karate movies, and before we even watched the Double Dragon movie, we watched like some Japanese movie, and like the thing I remember most from it is that like that one guy kicked another guy into a fan, and like that was like so awesome to my third grade mind.
Yeah,
And,
that definitely seems pretty badass.
Yeah, I don't remember
Oh,
what
I
the
can almost
movie
see it.
was, but then like after that we watched Double Dragon, and then my friend who I brought to the thing, most of us really like most of the time when we talked about that event afterwards, we talked about the first movie more than the second movie. But I do remember that we did see Double Dragon that night.
I can see us talking about Double Dragon very, very briefly, because there's really not much to say about it. I will say this: Mark Dacascos is great. He played, I forget which one he played. Jimmy, I want to say. Yeah, Jimmy. And he's a great martial arts actor. Not very well known, I don't think. He was in a film with Jet Li not so long ago, good few years ago, I think, actually. He's a genuinely accomplished martial arts movie actor. So that was decent casting. And the other guy that they had to play Billy, or Bimmy, if you like, was Scott Wolf. But the acting was decent. Robert
Did
Patrick
you see
is
this
always going to be
recent?
great.
Do you remember it?
No, I like I said, I think I last watched it about like sometime last year, because it was just one of those movies that I hadn't seen. And again, like I said earlier, I was trying to get around to watching a couple of the movies that we were going to be talking about for this episode and future episodes, but I really had to force myself. So if I had to force myself to watch Super Mario Brothers, this just for the sake of refreshing my memory would have been a real push. But all I can say is that I remember it being it starts okay. Like I say, you're introducing the world, introducing the characters. They are true to the games a little bit more than Mario, certainly. The Super Mario Bros. Movie, I would say that'd be hard to do. It's more of a post-apocalyptic sort of 80s, 90s cyberpunk environment, sort of. Although in the games it's more of a, well, I guess more of a crime-ridden world, just like Streets of Rage. But
Just
what
like
can I
the
s-
Mario Brothers movie.
In a way, yeah, you could argue that, yeah.
It's like this underground dystopia. Only it's not really underground, but it's just kind of punk. Like the gangs have taken over kind of world.
Oh yeah, and I just suddenly remembered a Bobo. A Bobo in the
Oh man.
movie is like gets mutated into like this weird hulking monster.
Well, because the Abobo from the game was like this big hulking monster. He was like, wasn't he like the first boss or something like that?
I think I can't recall, to be honest with you.
I remember that like the first boss is Abobo, and like there's a conveyor belt, and like the quick way to beat him is that you just like kick him on his butt. Kick him until he falls on his butt on the conveyor belt, and then he just falls down like into the bottomless pit. And
Classic 80s movie death. I fall it go landing on a conveyor belt and ended up in some grinder or something. Classic.
Yeah, I really did love the what's it called, the Double Dragon video game when I was a kid.
Oh yeah,
not so much the movie. I like my memory of that movie, or my memory of that game, is that I remember my brother. I think this was like really late in the Nintendo Entertainment System's life. They might have even stopped production, but I remember like one year for my birthday, my brother got for me this zippered up pack of like all these NES games, and I thought that was so cool. And I discovered the present before he gave it to me, and so my best friend and I just started playing the games. Like we just threw caution to the wind. We knew that we weren't supposed to be playing it. We knew that it was a gift for later, but we said, "What the heck? We're gonna do this," and we just like played Double Dragon together, and it was such a good memory. But the movie, not so much. The movie,
I mean, we're talking about like around not long after I think Karate Kid, and I think. Yeah, because he was actually funny enough. This film came out around about, unbelievably, when you think about it, Super Mario Brothers and Double Dragon came out around about the same time as Jurassic Park. Think about that.
But
actually,
the thing is, though, that
but in terms of quality and visual effects and stuff like that, I mean, wow.
The Double Dragon movie didn't come out until later.
Like,
it didn't
come out
until 7 years after. It didn't even come out until 7 years after the video game.
94. Double Dragon came out.
The movie.
The movie, yeah.
Yeah. It came
Jurassic
out like
Park came out in 93.
years after.
Oh, well after the games, yeah.
Well, everybody was trying to imitate the most popular things at the time, so anything that they could do, whether that means like having like the most state-of-the-art effects or whatever.
I think the way Double Dragon went wrong was they ignored the environment a little bit. There is moments where it's like Billy and Jimmy are almost living in a world where anyone can mug them, anyone can stab them, anyone can rob them of their money and stuff like that. They could have had this story of them sort of fighting a gang or something like that, which is pretty much what the games are about, more or less. But then they end up fighting this like business mogul, and but the thing is, they don't really fight a lot. They leaned towards the children, more of a children's movie than they did an action movie. They could have easily skirted the line. They could have easily done both. But in the end, it just comes off as goofy.
The movie has a lot of Japanese mysticism, and I don't think that the game had a lot of that. I think the game was just like, this gang stole my girlfriend, and I need to get her back because she's just the MacGuffin to get me, to the end.
In a way, the film feels like it's a prequel because they get introduced to Marion, who was played by Alyssa Milano. It could well have been her first film. I have no idea because
Oh
was very
no,
young.
Melissa Milano was huge in the 80s.
Oh yeah, I remember she was. I remember her being a child actor. In fact, like when she was a kid. I can't remember in what though.
She was in a TV show.
It was some film as well. Like I think.
Was it Who's the Boss?
I
Growing Pains. It was one of those shows.
I just remember her being in some sort of film.
I know. I'm 30 years old and I'm still too young to know what Melissa Milano was up to in the 80s.
That's it. I just remembered. She plays the daughter of John Matrix in Commando, Arnold Schwarzenegger's movie.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's a good movie.
That's a really good movie.
Well, hopefully, while we talk about video game movies, it's not going to be a lot of this movie was terrible. But do you remember this good movie?
It's hard not to, in a way. It's hard not to mention all these actors. Like Mark Dacascos was in a film called Drive, which is a really good martial arts movie. I don't know who Scott Wolf is, although he looks very familiar. For a moment, I thought he was the guy who plays Johnny Cage in the Mortal Kombat movie. But I don't think so. I can find out though.
I just looked it up, and Alyssa Milano was from Who's the Boss from 1984 to 1992.
That's right.
But go on.
All I will say is that Double Dragon. If you are behind on your video game movies and you've not seen many of these, either start with this one just to get it out of the way, or leave it till the very end because you've watched all the good ones by now. So yeah, if I was to create a list, because let's face it, video game movies on the whole, I would even say about 90% of them are kind of garbage. Some of them are bad to the point where they are rewatchable just because they're so hilariously bad, like in a campy fun way, and then some are genuinely good. Double Dragon is right the way down there. I'm not sure if I would say it's the worst, but of what I've seen, of what I can remember,
yeah, I wouldn't say
it is the worst.
Yeah, I've seen some really, really bad video game movies, and it would have to be a, like, complete mess for it to be the worst video game movie I've ever seen.
But
I've been looking at the screenshots on the stream, and that movie it does look interesting. Let's say that.
It's the way it ends. It goes from being kind of gritty and a little bit campy to being all out silly by the end.
I feel like that's the way a lot of video game movies are.
But like Super Mario Brothers is kind of goofy towards the end, but it ends. It feels like an ending. It feels like a fight happened. But if I remember correctly, in Double Dragon, they basically tie him up, like he's like a Scooby-Doo villain or something. I can't remember what happened exactly. Like I say, I really wish I had rewatched it. And my apologies to the listeners that I didn't, because I don't think any of us have seen it for a long time, and I probably the person who watched it the most recently. I think
I watched a review of it today. That's like all I did. But like, what I saw was that basically all that happens in the movie is there's two pieces of this Japanese mystic emblem called the Double Dragon, and the bad guy gets a hold of one of them, and he's like, "Oh, go get me the other one." And Billy and Jimmy have the other one, and so basically nothing really happens until like the end of it. This is after like their house blew up or whatever like that. With him trying to get the other thing. And basically, I think the bad guy gets like the second half of the emblem. He becomes super powerful. They work together. They get the emblem away from him, and then like the
teamwork is important, kids.
Yes, exactly. The two of them put the Double Dragon together, and then they have like these really cheesy karate uniforms that just suddenly appear on them, and like it's like, yes, you have unlocked the power of teamwork, and so
gold star.
Then at the end, they fight each other, right?
That would have been so interesting as a kind of after credit sequence. I don't know, but
yeah. But it was never. The movie was never about getting a girl. Like, I don't. They didn't. Do
it
that
kind
in the
of
movie.
was. They kind of, if I remember correctly, they're not. Well, not really. I see what you mean, but I mean, there is a brief sort of like they're both. I think they're both kind of into Marion. I think there was a hint of that, where they kind of have a bit of banter back and forth or something like that. Again, I really wish I watched it again. But no, it should have been about that. But Alyssa's character is portrayed as so strong and independent, I think, that they just didn't go down that road. Like, she does kind of kick butt. Not really, but, you know, she's sort of portrayed that way, that she can she can handle herself, if I recall.
Yeah,
but I do think it could have gone down that road. And even like the possessed Marion, that would have been an interesting way to go with it. Because that happens in the game.
The thing that's wrong with the using the woman as the motivation is like that there's so much of it. It wouldn't be so much of a problem if it were done less often, but because get the princess has been a trope for so long, and I guess, you know, people are starting to take a little bit more issue with it nowadays.
Nowadays, yes, but in the early '90s, mid '90s, they could have got away with it. But even then, it was a bit standard.
It's been standard since like storytelling first began, pretty much, because men have always been horn dogs. So it's just like.
Well, I do agree.
I win. I beat the dragon, and so I get to, you know, win the ability to have sex with, you know, the princess.
We'll get the peck on the cheek, the innocent preteen version of it. Get the peck on the cheek.
Yeah, that's the PG version.
Mm-hmm. But even
that would be
old,
better than what they did, though.
Yeah, even old legends that we talked about this during the Final Fantasy episode that still hasn't aired at this point. But like even in the Final Fantasy episode, even at the even like back then when they had like the story of like Tiamat, that was a giant metaphor for sex, and I think that when Double Dragon tried to not make the girl getting punched in the stomach and carried off, like I think that when they tried to make that not the focus, I think that's
they
the reason
really
why.
ran with it in later games. She gets shot in later games. In one, I think it's the second game, I want to say. She gets like shot and I want to say killed. You know, brutal. So it's more of a revenge story. So they could have gone that way as well. Because that would have been less about the princess and more about avenging the princess. But then again, that would have been a bit too dark for a movie which was very much going for a PG. If that, it was, well, like I say, it's so kiddish at points where so goofy and silly. Well, I wouldn't say kiddish, just goofy and silly, to the point where it's like, oh yeah, this is definitely aimed at kids, and that's understandable. But even by 1994, the original game is about 7 years old, I think, off the top of my head. It wouldn't have been so bad to go down that sort of dark road and make it a little bit more gritty, a little bit more violent. Like, there's such a thing as, even for a kids movie, there's such a thing as being a little bit too, you know, pandering to kids. Like the way it ends, it's so like, yeah, we defeated the evil corporation guy, and, you know, everyone's doing high fives and dancing or whatever. I can't recall, but, you know, it's just not a good movie.
Yeah. I think that Super Mario Brothers was a little bit better because at least I have fond memories of that. I have nothing memories of Double Dragon the movie.
Forgettable would be a good way to describe it.
Is like when you watch a movie and then just forget about it as soon as it's over.
Well, like I said, I only watched it sometime last year for the first time. You think it will be fresh in my memory, but I just, like I said, just remembered Robert Patrick's, or rather, Koga Shuko's epic pompadour, and yeah, and I remember a sequence involving a car, and a mugging or something, and the kind of goofy fight in the end. But you can almost hear the whoa, 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 kind of like goofy cartoon sound effects where I feel like either we're in it or I'm imagining it was in it because it was that goofy. Yeah, not very fresh in my memory at all.
Well, I guess that's what that's the culture of gaming take on Double Dragon. It's a forgettable movie.
Also, just for the in terms of performance in the box office, it actually did almost exactly. Well, it did worse than Mario, Super Mario Brothers. It had made a third of its budget back. So,
ooh, that's rough.
That's nasty. Yeah.
I don't even think it's. I don't hear it being like a cult classic like Super Mario Brothers. Like Super Mario Brothers may have eventually made its money back on like, DVD
ironic viewings
or whatever. Yeah, but I bet Double Dragon seems to have just been forgotten.
Yeah, Super Mario Brothers has developed a fairly significant cult following to the point where there's like websites dedicated to it and stuff like that. Probably Facebook groups, I imagine. Double Dragon, on the other hand, has been all but forgotten.
But do you know what's even better than both of these movies?
Oh yeah,
Street Fighter, the movie.
Yeah.
This is a movie that is actually campy. It doesn't have to be good, but it works how campy it is.
I remember. Go on. Sorry, you can.
I was going to say. I think a big portion of that is Raul Julia as M. Bison.
He goes all out for it. He really does. He took that script and he took it as seriously as he could. Little did everybody know that he was dying at the time. He was literally dying.
Behind the scenes, they kind of did. So they actually tried to film a lot of his scenes early, and I can't remember what happened beyond that, but that was generally the goal. I think they couldn't in the end or something. I can't remember. But it was I think it was known that he had cancer, but they didn't really know how bad it actually was. That it was, he was nearing the end. R.I.P. I read a criticism of the film. Like it got really mixed reviews. But I think fans of the series can say that it's actually a really decent take.
Wait.
When was this from? When was your
the
review?
Street Fighter series think that it's a good movie?
I would say so. Although decent.
I'd beg to differ on that, but
it's not a good movie. It's just it's campy and like you get the enjoyment from watching a cheesy movie.
Yeah, I think that's the way I look at it is like it's very easy for me to just be like, this isn't a Street Fighter movie so much as it's just a pretty like campy fun action movie, I guess.
After 7 months of fighting, the civil war in Shadaloo may have reached the turning point. The capital has just fallen.
In December 1994, the forces of freedom will face a power-mad dictator in a struggle for the fate of the world.
I'm going to kick Bison's ass.
I don't think so. You'll have to do better than that.
Okay. Now, who wants to go home and who wants to go with me?
I would say that if you are a fan of the series, you can enjoy it as a take on the Street Fighter franchise. I think that adds to it. I mean, I grew up with Street Fighter 2, and while I will say that I don't think some of the casting was spot on. Van Damme was probably only chosen because he could pull off a flash kick. Probably, I don't know whether that was all him or whether he was it up. I don't know. I would like to think it was all him. And whether
America was the country that was making that the movie was being made in, and so like I think they wanted Guile as the main character, but I could be wrong about that.
That's an interesting idea. Like if it was made in a different country, would like say for example, if it was made in Japan, would E Honda be the hero? Or
no, if it were made in Japan, Ryu.
Yeah, it would most definitely be Ryu centered.
Oh, of course, yeah. Oh, why wasn't it Ken? It could have been Ken. Ken's American. Anyway, I would say the casting was iffy for the most part.
Guile being like a military, person and all that, back in the 90s when like, I mean, military was like really in style, I guess. So like Guile being the lead character makes sense.
I mean, I guess in your head you can kind of make like a connection, like maybe like nobody wants to do math in their head when they're watching a movie. So like you don't want to be listening to Guile's Belgian accent and say, well, maybe his parents were from Belgium, and maybe he was born in America, and it doesn't really matter. But like, yeah, but like, I guess the whole point is that it's a cheesy movie. Who cares that Van Damme has a thick Belgian accent when he is, trying to play an American?
How many movies was Arnold Schwarzenegger in when he was supposed to be like the all-American, military badass? You know what I mean? But no, he's obviously not American. But people accepted it because, he's
Van Damme.
Yeah, or he's Schwarzenegger, or he's Stallone's American, but he doesn't sound very American.
Did you know that Schwarzenegger was approached to play the role of Bison?
That would have made Raul Julia is perfect in that role. Like he's chewing scenery like it's like about to become illegal.
Yeah.
I will say this about. I'll go back to what I said earlier about the. I was mentioning it, but I forgot to complete my point. I read a criticism of Raul Julia's or the film in general, but they said the only thing that was very good was Raul Julia's performance. I can't remember who the reviewer was or what from publication it was, but they basically said that even I think Raul Julia knew that it was kind of a campy, silly, goofy, dumb movie, but he was so professional that he gave it his all. And even though he was dying as well, he still like just hit it out of the park. Personally, I would think it was just good acting. I think as a character, as a person, I mean, he was thin because he was dying, but he's quite a sort of tall, kind of is the word svelte person. Is that the right word? I don't know. He's just quite a narrow person. I imagine Bison's obviously being quite a beefy guy. So as far as like the look, I don't think he really nailed Bison, but as a character, as an actor, as a performance, it was pretty much spot on.
I think that Raul Julia, the way he portrayed Bison, like up to that point, like I'm pretty sure it only like Street Fighter 2 was the game that was out at that point. So like there wasn't really any characterization of Bison. I think
and only in as much as every ending for each game.
Right, he was the boss character.
Of course, like Chun-Li had her thing where like she wants to avenge her father. Guile has his thing where he wants to avenge his commander, Charlie.
Right, but he was a very faceless, like dictator kind of character, But I think as time has gone on, especially like with 4 and 5 having actual like dialogue and that kind of stuff. I think M. Bison has become more like Raul Julia, like the over the top, crazy megalomaniac who's fairly campy.
The weird thing about the game nowadays, Street Fighter 2, is that they put the ages of every character, on the waiting screen for like the arcade game, and so like now we know that Ryu is like over 50 years old at this point, if he were a real person, and so you have to wonder like, if they keep on making these Street Fighter games, they're probably not going to take place in, the present day, because if they did, then Bison wouldn't want Ryu's body anymore.
Well, I mean, the games have strayed away from Bison wanting Ryu's body. To the point where he's making his own clones. Like Cammy was a clone. They're more and more new characters are, they're failed clones, but
wasn't she a brainwashed person?
Yeah, I think she was brainwashed. Yeah, but like Falk,
that was more in the animated movie as well, the brainwashing stuff.
Yes, and now that you brought that up, like, if you really want a good Street Fighter movie, go watch Street Fighter 2, the animated movie. It is
I like that movie a lot.
Second that, because that was probably that was one of my earliest anime movies for a start. But I think it could well have been my first. No, I was going to say my first I think it was the first time I watched a video game movie and really loved it. Anyway, let's just say that.
Well, I don't know if we're to talk about this yet, but I guess as long as we're on the topic, we can talk about pretty much all the Street Fighter movies if we want to. But yeah, the animated movie was terrific. I
love that final fight; it's so good.
Yeah,
the Chun-Li movie is probably down in like the worst video game movies I've ever seen.
It's like when they.
I've not seen it myself.
I know I say this a lot on this podcast, but whenever you make a video game movie, the story always has to come first. It can't be faithful to the game first, because when you're faithful to the game first, you're not making a good movie. You need to make a good movie first.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of movies do fail. Like, they don't really focus on the story; they just shoehorn elements in from the gaming story that's completely almost could be completely unrelated and no one would notice. Like I said with the Super Mario Brother movie. That just, for me, like it's like if you took an image of if you took Blade Runner and you just like put a couple of like mushrooms here or there and a couple of vines and a couple of like boxes, bricks rather, and a Yoshi in the corner. You get that. That's how it felt to me. It didn't feel like, I know the script went through a bunch of changes, but I totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was a gaming historian on YouTube did a really good version, or I guess post-mortem of that movie, going through all of the like changes and all of like the backstage politics, I guess.
Which movie?
It's, Mario. And it's just fascinating to watch because, I mean, once you like add all that in, like Super Mario Brothers had no chance of making a good movie, like whatsoever, after everything was said and done. It was just, there were so many hands in the pie, wanting different stuff. Like, the directors wanted one thing, the studio wanted another thing, Nintendo wanted, another thing, and in the end, you just get, you get the tonal mess of Super Mario Brothers.
Something broken that was just put together, fixed together, and just chucked on a cinema screen.
And Street Fighter movie was campy, but it knew what it was. I feel like the Super Mario Brothers movie and the Double Dragon movie, they were torn in all sorts of different directions, but Street Fighter as a movie knew what it was. It knew what it was going for. It was going to be stupid. It was going to enjoy being stupid.
It was going to be aimed at like 12-year-old boys and stuff like that. It was going to be goofy and over the top, and the humor was going to be dumb. I don't particularly like the portrayal of Zangief, or most of them really. But
one
of the best.
Most of the characters are horrible.
Like Ryu and Ken. What the hell? That's not. They look nothing like they are, or even act really like they are in the game.
Wasn't Chun-Li like a? It's
American
been a while
news
since I recorded.
reporter.
Yeah, she was a news reporter. That was dumb.
Was she American in that movie?
I think she was Chinese American.
I think, yeah. That sounds right.
She was Chinese American news reporter. Yeah.
And Kylie Minogue. My God, do you know what? Apparently, she only got the role because of the Australian Actors Guild or something. They had to put an Australian actor in there for some reason.
I thought that she got the role because wasn't there somebody, I forget who it was, who only got the role because they were like having sex with with the director.
Oh no, Kylie Minogue and Van Damme had an affair.
That's it.
He has yeah, he's been pretty like outspoken and like braggy about that. It's kind of hilarious.
That's kind of embarrassing.
Here we go. I got it's a. I thought I had it. I thought I had something on Kylie Minogue's casting, but I think it was filmed in Queensland. For the most part, I think. Honestly, I did have a lot of info written down, and I lost it all. I'll be honest with you.
That's okay.
And I had it all written down in on Notepad, and my computer went do you know what? This is a good time for an update. And I think that's why I can't find it, because it just didn't save. Anyway, so I'm pretty sure that because of some relation to the some group of Australian Actors Guild, I have no idea, because it was an Australian film, in a way. Because of that, part of the rules was they had to have an Australian actor, just to sort of just because it was, they obviously want more Australian actors in films, so that would be one of their rules. But anyway, that's why she got the role. But and there was that really lame sort of bit where she jumps on a soldier's head, and there's a flip, and throws him, and Kylie Minogue really overacted. It was like whoa or something. I can't remember, but I just think that was really bad casting. The guy that played Sagat, Wes Studi, was for me spot on. I wish I saw him fight more though, if at all.
I mean, Wes Studi is just an amazing actor. Period.
Really cool actor, yeah. But I would love to have seen him fight. I'd love to see him be Sagat, in the trunks with the straps, with the bands on the wrists, or did he not wear those? I think he chose not to wear them in his backstory. I can't remember. Anyway, that was really good casting. I thought the guy that played Zangief was spot on, Andrew Bryniarski, who was I can't remember if he was a wrestler. He looked like Zangief.
Yeah, he was probably the closest to.
In terms of appearance, right?
Characters and looks, yeah.
Vega looked more like what's his face from Desperado? What's his name? If I remember correctly, Antonio Banderas. He had more of a kind of like a Latin. I think I can't remember if Vega was to begin with. Vega's Spanish, isn't
from Spain. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see vegan? Anyway, I think I would love to have seen Zangief fight more as well. There was a really goofy sequence where they were fighting, I think it was Zangief fighting against E Honda, and they sort of panned back, and they were fighting on top of Bison's dream model of his country, of Bisonopolis. Bisonopolis, right? Bison dollars and all that stuff. When they were fighting on top of that, and they turned into kind of they turned it into a joke, like, oh, it's like Godzilla versus Mothra or something, isn't it? And that was basically, that was it. That was meant to be funny, but it just seemed so weird and random. They had, I. Do you know what I think? I don't know if you know your British politics, but do you know what I think would be a really good person to play Honda? Just because I think he looks like him a little bit.
Who?
Gordon Brown.
I'm not familiar.
Anyway, he's a British politician. I think of the right name. Very short-lived British Prime Minister, and I just think he actually looks like him, at least from the Street Fighter 2 era, anyway. But yeah, I think in terms of like casting and the look of a lot of the people, it was for the most part kind of rubbish. But some characters absolutely nailed it. But their portrayal was kind of rubbish. I thought Zangief was kind of really dumb, like to the point where I know they kind of said that he was the slow.
That's kind of weird. I'm looking up Gordon Brown right now.
I might have the name wrong. I don't know. But they portrayed him as this like. This really like a complete simpleton, and he really isn't. He's a bit. I think Zangief is portrayed often as a guy who has a loose grasp of English, but I don't think he's a total doofus.
No, he's definitely a total doofus.
I wouldn't say that, but the way they portray him in the movie, though, I wouldn't say that he's that stupid. Like the whole like thumbs up thing, where they like turn his hand into a thumbs up instead of a sideways thumbs up or something. And come on, who doesn't know what a thumbs up is? He was just a little bit too stupid.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah. What do you think? How do you think the way that
I'm upset that Ken wasn't blonde.
How do you think that Blanca turning into a monster? Do you think that's stupid?
That was one of my biggest gripes with the movie is Blanca's kind of origin story. Although I know they kind of changed it as the game series went on, but his original story was that he basically like crash landed in a jungle and then became a kind of like a feral man to survive. And the reason why he turned green was because he ate a lot of plants. Chlorophyll made his is it chlorophyll? Changed the color of his skin, and he did that on purpose so he could blend in with his environment and become like a hunter. And also the reason why he had the powers to conduct electricity was quite simply, if I remember correctly, that he got struck by lightning. I would rather have that.
That's comic book logic.
He was just looking for his mom.
And also, he's so scrawny. Wasn't he played by Who was he played by? He's played by what's his name? No, I'm thinking of someone else. I'm thinking of a completely different actor. Either way, he was played by a scrawny dude, and once again, Blanca is the very definition of a beast. So they could have really gone crazy with that, but he just ended up being this scrawny guy with orange hair. That was brainwashed, and that's it. They could have done so much more with that.
Yeah, but overall, I think good movie.
Oh yeah, it goes into my category of bad watchable. You can watch it with friends. You can watch it on your own. It's not going to win any awards. Although on that note, Raul Julia did win an award posthumously, but he won a best actor for the Saturn Awards, I think, and best supporting actor at the Saturn Awards. That was it. Oh no, he won a nomination. Sorry, but still, there was that. But one of my favorite moments, albeit brief, because I remember loving it when I was a kid, because it was just like one of those when you watch a video game film, especially if you're a kid, you're waiting almost for those elements from the game. You want to see Blanca do his electric attack. You want to see E Honda do his 100-hand slaps. And I wanted to see Guile do his flash kick. Now, I think they missed an opportunity here for some animation. They could have had some flashes on it. But what I particularly loved when I was a kid is that he does it twice. He spams it. Just like I did when I played the game. I spammed the hell out of the flash kick.
Yeah, he does.
He does it twice, and Bison gets knocked against the wall, and he throws himself back at him, and he gets knocked against the wall again. It's such a video game thing to do, and I thought that was really, really good. And I loved that when I was a kid. When it happened, I was like, "Oh, he did it again!" Only because that was very video gamey for me, and that's what I would do because as Guile, Guile is my guy. Guile is the fighter that I will choose. He's my main. More in the
Oh, you're
older.
one of them. Gross.
Yeah, in terms of like in the era of the World Warrior Street Fighter 2, absolutely. I can't quite gel with him in later games. But anyway,
What about the movie?
What?
Yeah. What about the movie? Because you kind of went off on a tangent about the games.
Oh yeah, I'm saying like that's one of my favorite elements was directly linked to the fact that I play as Guile and I spam the flash kick. So when it happened in
The movie,
yeah, I did kind of go off on a tangent, didn't I? When it happened in the movie, I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really want to watch this movie again. I might do that. We get off
I feel like
stream here.
I feel like that because this movie laid into what it was that's cheesy and fun, and that let's say the Legend of Chun-Li, which we probably won't end up talking about on this podcast, it took itself way too seriously, in stark contrast to the Street Fighter movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme. I felt like the one with Kristen Kruk just took itself way too seriously, and it wasn't even faithful to the video game. So, like, unfaithful on top of bad leaves you with a really bad movie.
Bison was also really miscast, I think. I don't know. That's just the way I look at it.
Really?
Yeah.
He seems like a character that'd be easy to cast for. Big
yeah,
guy,
he's like this
all out evil, done.
scrawny white guy wearing a suit.
Yeah.
They went down. They sort of modernized it. They made him more of a business mogul rather than a kind of like an over the top, power hungry megalomaniac villain.
Right.
What I loved though about that movie was that they included Rose, and like they had the Bison's whole backstory where he was in love with a woman and he wanted power, and so he put all of his goodness into a baby, and
Interesting.
into his own child, and so all of his goodness is in Rose. And so he's just pure evil at this point, so that he could be powerful.
I love video game plots like that. I love that sort of ridiculous sort of thing.
Yeah,
the idea that you can
I liked about that
good bits and put them in another person. Although it's silly, it makes for it's just interesting. I love that sort of stuff.
Speaking of Rose, she definitely needs to be in the next season of Street Fighter V. They've teased her enough.
Yeah, isn't she the female clone of Bison? Or
To Capri?
Fault is Street Fighter V. No, I can't remember what her backstory is. She's like some mystical woman. She's like Manat's master, basically. She's like some mystical woman who has seen like the problems that M. Bison will cause for the world if he's allowed to complete his world domination or whatever. And so she's trying to stop that. That's like the basic part of it, I think.
I guess in the end it doesn't really matter, because like I was saying, the Street Fighter movie is good. The later Street Fighter movie is not good. The animated Street Fighter movie is good.
That might be up there in my top 3 as far as video game movies go,
Yeah, I think so. And I'm with Jonathan on this. I think that after this we should go watch it. And I don't know.
It is genuinely really watchable. As far as movies goes, ignoring the fact that it's a video game movie, is genuinely watchable bit of trash.
Yeah, I mean,
goofy, stupid movie. Don't have to pay too much
it's
attention to.
like one of the better like '90s action movies, I would think, or like one of the more typical '90s action movies, I guess I should say.
I think it was a little lacking on the action. I think they could have done a bit more with that. They could have had a bit more of that rather. Like I said earlier, I wanted to see the other characters fight more. I
Well,
wanted to see
yeah,
them
no,
some wrestling moves
the
and all that.
'90s action movies were kind of like slower, I guess, than like '80s action movies were.
Yeah.
They still
I
kind of had
remember
that
how
mindset.
cheesy. Okay. Yeah.
No, go
I
ahead.
remember the military in the bright blue uniforms. And that was so hilarious that like anybody would wear a military uniform that bright and like revealing.
Yeah, I don't know
Just
what
like
they were trying to like camouflage themselves from.
For when they swim.
if we're in the sky.
I mean, I was in the Navy and we had like blue
sure.
and black camo, which, you know, if you're out on a ship, you don't really want to blend into the water all that much because you want people to be able to find you. But like
Should
that
you go overboard? Right?
powder robin's egg blue is pretty.
I think
pretty
that's
dumb.
just a video game thing. I think that was it. I think it's just because I reckon it was a video game thing. Everything's going to be a little bit more brighter and a bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, just
Colorful?
brighter in general. Yeah, yeah.
More visually pleasing.
Yeah, campy. I would say more campy and easier on the eyes. I think they wanted to go for color, so every character has a kind of brightness to them. All the bad guys have a certain darkness to them. Like look at Bison's outfit. It's a very subdued red. In the game, it's a lot brighter.
It's more Adam West Batman, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I think that's the more the tone that they were going for than more like serious. Wrapping it up, guys. Do you guys have any like final thoughts on the Street Fighter movies? Any of them, really?
I would say definitely watch the animated movie. They focus on the characters' abilities more. There's a lot of There's a lot more focus on the action. There's a fantastic fight between Vega and Chun-Li rather. Although before that, there's a little bit of a pointless topless scene with Chun-Li. Really, just completely obvious and just like, oh my god, really. But it's a great fight that follows it. The final fight of the game is brilliant. The film rather is brilliant. So it's as far as like a Street Fighter movie goes, that is almost perfect. I've not seen The Legend of Chun-Li, but I imagine I'm not going to disagree with you guys. The Van Damme movie, great, very campy, very good, very watchable. Certainly good with a couple of friends around and stuff like that. So yeah, would definitely recommend watching that. Whether you're a fan or not of Street Fighter, but do watch the animated movie because that is just great.
And Jonathan, what are your last words about any of the movies that we've talked about? Street Fighter.
I'd say that like the Street Fighter the movie is pretty watchable. I think it's fun if you can turn your brain off.
Yeah.
The Legend of Chun-Li is it's real bad. I would tell people never to watch that movie.
Wow.
If you do, I think on top of that, I would say,
make sure you have a lot of alcohol at hand.
Yeah, my last words about the Street Fighter movies is that what was already said, the Street Fighter movie with Van Damme was campy but good. The animated movie was amazing. The Chun-Li movie, it was not good, but I think there was a good scene in it where there was like some sort of fight in like a strip club or something. I forget, but I think it was like some sort of like, I remember the fight scene being really cool. Like I think she does like a Chun-Li move there, but
and Chun-Li does the kick in the animated movie. It ticks all the boxes.
Absolutely. I guess on that, I would ask David, where places that people can find you.
Well, the best place to follow myself is on on Instagram, and that is at davey.shiro, which is DAVEY.SHIRO, or you can follow the podcast's Instagram, which is virtually the same thing, a bit more video game focused rather than just me and video games, which is at Retro Rumble Pod. Just search Retro Rumble on there. And that's probably the best way to follow the show and myself.
Okay. And Jonathan, where can people find you?
Best place to find me probably would be at Left Stick on Twitter. I'm on there fairly often. Don't necessarily post as often as I should, but I'm definitely there. And occasionally I'll stream on at Left Stick on Twitch. I should really start doing that more.
Yeah. And where people can find me is, of course, you can find all of us at cultureofgaming.com. We post content there every day, whether they be podcasts, articles, videos. So we do a lot. And upcoming, we are going to have the top 25 3D platformers, and so look forward to that.
Oh yeah.
Where you can find me at Game Old on YouTube and on Twitter at Game Old. And I guess until next time, see everybody's later.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm sorry. I don't remember any of it.
You don't remember?
For you, the day Bison graced your village was the most important day of your life. But for me, it was Tuesday.